Hello and a very good evening. You're watching the news tonight on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are the headlines. Delhi government calls off for odd-even vehicle rationing scheme. State Transport Minister Gehlot says government can't conduct the drive without exemptions and will ask NGT to reconsider its decision. Pakistan's decision to allow Kulbhushan Jadhav to meet his wife demonstrates diplomatic outreach, says India. Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman reiterates a commitment to bring him back. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu addresses students in Bhubaneswar, tells them to learn new skills and get rid of prejudices, hatred and intolerance. And 25th APEC Economic Leaders meeting opens in Vietnam. 21-member economies discuss issues including sustainable growth and prosperity of the Asia-Pacific region. Environment Minister Harshvardhan has asked people not to panic, saying that the graded response action plan must be implemented earnestly and meticulously by the concerned state governments. Meanwhile, residents of Delhi have to wait till Monday to know if the odd-even scheme will be implemented, as the Delhi government has put it on hold, citing women's safety. Here's a detailed report.
Even after the National Green Tribunal allowed the Delhi government to go ahead with their plan of odd-even rationing of vehicular traffic to curb pollution, the Aam Aadmi Party government has put a hold on the scheme, claiming that they cannot conduct the drive without exemptions, which was to be implemented from Monday.
ऑनरेबल एनजीटी कोर्ट ने जो दो कंडीशंस रखी, एक तो टू व्हीलर्स एग्जेम्प्ट नहीं होंगे और लेडीज भी एग्जेम्प्ट नहीं होंगी. लेडीज की सेफ्टी और सिक्योरिटी के साथ दिस गवर्नमेंट इज वेरी कंसर्न्ड, तो वो हम रिस्क बिल्कुल नहीं ले सकते. तो एट द मोमेंट जो PM 2.5 और PM 10 के जो लेवल्स हैं वो प्रिस्क्राइब लेवल से भी कम है. तो एट द मोमेंट वी आर कॉलिंग इट ऑफ. लेकिन मंडे को वी आर गोइंग बैक टू NGT. वी आर रिक्वेस्टिंग NGT कि वो जो टू व्हीलर्स की एग्जेम्पशन और लेडीज की एग्जेम्पशन जो है वो उसको दोबारा कंसिडर करें.
जो भी गाइडलाइंस हैं जो समय समय पर भारत सरकार के पर्यावरण मंत्रालय ने दिए हैं, बीच बीच में कोर्ट्स ने भी कुछ डायरेक्शंस दिए हैं, उनको ईमानदारी से रिलीजियसली फॉलो करें, उनके ऊपर काम करें, क्योंकि लोगों के स्वास्थ्य की रक्षा करना ये हम सबकी सामूहिक जिम्मेदारी है.
The NGT had ordered the withdrawal of all exemptions, including two-wheeler riders and women-only vehicles under the odd-even scheme. However, commuters and women drivers say that they are willing to take the trouble of using other modes of transport to help curb pollution.
Level 500 से ऊपर और PM 2.5 300 से ऊपर जाता है, 48 आवर्स के अंदर मॉनिटर करके उसे ऑड इवन स्कीम को ऑटोमेटिकली इंप्लीमेंट करना होगा. इस बार कोई एग्जेम्पशन नहीं है, कोई वुमेन विद चाइल्ड, वुमेन, किसी तरह की कोई एग्जेम्पशन नहीं होगी. ये सब पर लागू होगा, VIPs पर भी लागू होगा, जहां तक का ट्राइब्यूनल का ऑर्डर है. तो इसका मतलब ये कहा ओनली इमरजेंसी व्हीकल्स विल बी एग्जेम्प्टेड.
वैसे तो महिलाओं को दिक्कत होगी, इसमें जाहिर सी बात है, क्योंकि हम जैसे हाउसवाइफ वगैरह है, दिन में बच्चों को लेने जाती हैं, हस्बैंड्स कार लेके चले जाते हैं, इनके ऐसे में आप क्या करेंगे. लेकिन अगर आप उस लिहाज से देखें, पॉल्यूशन को कर्ब करने के लिए किया गया है, तो इट्स नॉट अ बेटर मूव, आई वुड से. अच्छा है.
अगर बाइकों पे ऑड-इवन लागू हो जाएगा तो फिर जॉब कैसे करेगा? जॉब करने वाला बंदा 3-4 बाइक कहाँ से लेके आएगा? वो ये जो फैसला है ना, ये रद्द होना चाहिए बाइक का.
खाली ऑड-इवन से कुछ होने वाला तो नहीं है, बहुत कुछ और भी स्टेप्स लेने चाहिए. पर अगर कुछ कर रहे हैं तो मेल्स और फीमेल्स दोनों अगर इसको माने तो बेहतर होगा. पर अगर किसी लेडी को प्रॉब्लम होता है वो भी देखना चाहिए गवर्नमेंट को.
कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, एकदम बंद हो जाए, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, पॉल्यूशन तो खत्म होगा.
Earlier this week, the Delhi government had announced implementation of the odd-even scheme from November 13th to 17th, given the high level of smog in the capital. Schools were also shut down till Sunday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now get you some election-related news in our segment Verdict 2017. Well, Defence Minister and senior BJP leader Nirmala Sitharaman was on a campaign trail in Gujarat on Saturday. Taking on the opposition, the Congress, Sitharaman said that the party has always had an anti-Gujarat thought process. She also criticised the party for not doing anything for the Nirmala river.
इधर स्टेट में कांग्रेस जो है वो सेंट्रल पार्टी से नर्मदा के विषय में गुजरात के फेवर में डिसीजन ले नहीं पाते, उनका जनता का समर्थन भी अब तक नहीं मिला और अभी भी नहीं मिलेगा, क्योंकि तब आपके सरकार केंद्र में था और नर्मदा के पक्ष में आप कुछ भी नहीं किए, और तब भी शर्म की बात है, तब भी केंद्र सरकार में कांग्रेस के वरिष्ठ नेतागण गुजरात के खिलाफ काम किए और गुजरात यूनिट कांग्रेस पार्टी ने उसमें कुछ भी फर्क कर नहीं पाए.
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi was also in Gujarat. He launched the fourth phase of the party's Navsarjan Yatra in the state. The three-day Yatra in North Gujarat will cover 6 districts. On Saturday, he covered Sabarkantha district. Starting his Yatra from Chiloda in Gandhinagar, where he visited the Akshardham temple, Rahul Gandhi said that the people of Gujarat are not happy with the BJP government. The BJP criticized the move, saying Gandhi was visiting temples just ahead of elections to get votes.
5 अलग-अलग टैक्स नहीं चाहिए, हिंदुस्तान को एक टैक्स चाहिए, जीएसटी में स्ट्रक्चरल बदलाव चाहिए और ये जो 28% का है इसको बंद कीजिए, 18% पे लाइए. ये हमारी मांगे हैं, गुजरात की मांगे हैं, पूरे हिंदुस्तान की मांगे है और इसको हम छोड़ने वाले नहीं हैं. अगर बीजेपी के लोग नहीं करेंगे, पूरा दबाव लगेगा और उसके बाद नहीं करेंगे तो जैसे ही हमारी सरकार आएगी हम करके दिखा देंगे.
Well, moving on to some other big news now. Reacting to Pakistan's decision to Bhushan Jadhav to meet his wife, India said on Saturday that it's a reflection of the efficacy of Indian diplomatic outreach. Union Minister Jitendra Singh said that the move clearly shows that India's viewpoint is now gaining more acceptance across the world. Meanwhile, Defence Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the government is doing its best to get Jadhav back to India. Pakistan's Foreign Office said on Friday that Jadhav will be allowed to meet his wife on Pakistani soil. The move came months after New Delhi requested Islamabad to allow Jadhav's mother to meet him on humanitarian grounds. A former Indian Navy officer, Jadhav, was sentenced to death by a Pakistani military court in April on charges of spying and terrorism. In May, the International Court of Justice had halted his execution on India's appeal.
I must say that in the last 3 or 4 years, one of the major achievements of the Modi government is that as far as terror from Pakistan is concerned, as far as the sponsored terrorism in Kashmir is concerned, India's viewpoint is now gaining more and more acceptance across the world, even by those countries and nations which were earlier hesitant or had their own reasons not to accept it very easily. And therefore, this is certainly a compliment to the efficacy of India's diplomatic outreach.
हम उनको पूरे रिहा करके, उनको रिलीज करके भारत वापस ले आने के लिए हर कोशिश कर रहे हैं. इसीलिए इस बीच में अगर उनके पत्नी भी उनसे मिले, जाधव जी जो उधर हैं, पाकिस्तान के कब्जे में हैं, उनको मनोबल बढ़ेगा.
If it is actuated by serious bona fides, then I think this could be the beginning of a solution. But I am very cautious in my comment because I have my serious doubts about Pakistan's intents.
Well, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu addressed students at the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology in Bhubaneswar on Saturday. Addressing the annual convocation ceremony, the Vice President asked the students to learn new skills to get rid of prejudices, hatred and intolerance.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu participated in the 13th annual convocation of the Kalinga Institute of Industrial Technology in Bhubaneswar on Saturday. Wishing the students the best for their futures, the Vice President talked about the importance of a guru in their lives.
The guru who has given you the education, the knowledge. Who is a guru? A guru is a person who ज्ञान जो देता है वो गुरु है. इसलिए गुरु को हमेशा याद रखना. जितना भी टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट आया, आईटी हो गया, आईटी का ब्यूटी भी है और ड्यूटी भी हो गया, माइटी भी होगा कंट्री. मगर साथ ही साथ आईटी हो, इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी हो, गूगल हो, इंटरनेट हो, मगर Google can never replace Guru. Understand this.
The Vice President also emphasized on the need to learn new skills and said acquiring new knowledge is vital. He also said that education liberates us from prejudices, hatred and intolerance.
Learning new skills, acquiring his new knowledge is vital in today's knowledge economy. Life has become very competitive. Now we are in the era of LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. Unless you earn skills, unless you upgrade skills, you will not be able to face the competition.
Vice President Naidu also termed the students as inheritors of the great Indian culture of valued learning and knowledge. He also said, despite several attempts in the past, India has not allowed anyone to change its culture that emphasizes inclusion, truth, righteousness and welfare for all. Rajat Kain's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
The government will give proxy voting rights to over 25 million non-resident Indians spread across the world. Attorney General K.K. Venugopal stated this to the Supreme Court on Friday. The top court gave the government 12 weeks to carry out the exercise. Venugopal said that the appropriate amendment will be made in the Representation of People Act. The government intends to introduce a bill in the winter session of Parliament for this purpose. The court was hearing separate petitions filed by a UAE-based doctor and the chairman of Pravasi Bharat in London on the issue. The petitions have been pending for 3 years now. The Election Commission of India has already recommended that the government take necessary steps to amend the law for NRI voters. It prepared a report titled Exploring Feasibility of Alternative Options for Voting by Overseas Electors and presented it to the court in October 2014. Here's a roundup now, some other news from across the country in Nationwide. Income Tax Department raids continued at premises of jailed AIADMK leader V.K. Shashikala's family, their business associates and their organizations. As per officials, the searches are aimed at detecting tax evasion. Also, the IT department will look at the routing of funds within India, whereas other agencies will look into the routing of money outside India. The centre has issued an advisory to state governments to create awareness among farmers about harmful effects of straw burning. The advisory has been issued to Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. It asks the states to facilitate farmers to use residue management machines and equipment. The Union Home Ministry has formed 2 new divisions to exclusively deal with emerging security challenges such as radicalization and cybercrime. As per officials, the need for a counter-radicalization division and policy was felt as Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh was keen at the problem should be solved from the base. It's time for a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Homi J. Bhabha, multifaceted personality, scientist, visionary, chief architect of India's nuclear program. The founder of 2 of India's greatest research institutions, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research and Bhabha Atomic Research Centre. Bhabha unraveled the electron-positron scattering process of quantum electrodynamics. It's called Bhabha scattering after him.
Basic work is on to understand the neural mechanism of REM stimulation, means how does the brain regulate it, and then what is the function of this REM sleep. Generally, it is believed and experimentally it has been found mostly dreams during REM sleep you remember, others you don't. If the sleep is disturbed, most of the functions get disturbed in our body, then the quantum and quality might vary.
Watch Eureka with Dr. Birendranath Malik, Professor at Neurobiology Department in the School of Life Sciences, JNU, only on Rajya Sabha TV.
Hello and welcome. I'm Amritan Shirai and you're watching Law of the Land.
Formulation of the minimum wage is crucial.
Minimum wage will not be same for each and every employment.
Minimum wage committee have a tripartite negotiation with the government.
Watch Law of the Land on Rajya Sabha television. Hemkund Sahib, sacred shrine of the Sikhs, widely acclaimed for being the highest in the world, located in the Himalayas at an altitude of 15,200 feet. The Gurudwara is designed with an image of an upside-down lotus flower.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. And in a stern response to India's anti-doping body NADA, the BCCI said that the agency has no jurisdiction to conduct dope tests on Indian cricketers. In a letter written to NADA, BCCI CEO Rahul Johri made it clear there is no requirement for NADA to test its cricketers since the board is not a national sports federation and its present anti-doping system is robust enough. The BCCI's response was prepared with instructions from the Supreme Court appointed Committee of Administrators. Besides responding to the NADA chief, Johri also wrote back to the Sports Secretary, who approached the BCCI in October to cooperate with NADA. He even claimed that the BCCI is compliant with the World Anti-Doping Agency Code, and since BCCI is affiliated with the International Cricket Council, it is required to operate within the rules and regulations of the ICC. Here's a roundup of some other news from the world of sports in Sportsbeat. Ace Indian shuttler Kidambi Srikanth has pulled out of the China Open Super Series due to health concerns, but he will be back in action after a week's rest at the Hong Kong Super Series, where he has a chance to reach the world #1 ranking. He decided to take a week's rest after a leg injury during the Senior National Badminton Championships in Nagpur. Sweden defeated Italy 1-0 in the first leg of the World Cup playoff, leaving the four-time champions in danger of missing the tournament for the first time in 60 years. Substitute Jacob Johansson scored the only goal of the game in the 61st minute, while Italy needs to respond well in their next game to avoid danger of missing the tournament. Last time Italy failed to reach the World Cup was in 1958. South Korean Chung Hyun defeated Russia's Daniil Medvedev in the inaugural next-gen ATP finals in Milan. Chung beat Medvedev 4-1, 4-1, 3-4, 1-4, 4-0. Chung won the opening two sets, but Medvedev emerged in the third to make the contest interesting. Chung will next face another Russian, Andrei Rublev. Four-time world champion Lewis Hamilton smashed the Interlagos track record as Mercedes dominated Brazilian Grand Prix practice. Hamilton finished both sessions with a best time of 1 minute and 9.202 seconds, while Valtteri Bottas finished second. The previous track record of 1 minute and 9.822 was set by Brazilian Rubens Barrichello in 2004. Moving on to some international news now. US President Donald Trump reached Hanoi on Saturday as he continued his tour of Asia. However, the tour is not going too well with North Korea, which has slammed what it calls Trump's warmonger Asia tour. Pyongyang said Trump is only accelerating its push for a full-fledged nuclear deterrent. The North state-run television KRT said that Trump's current trip was nothing more than a war dealer's business of taking money from its allies' pockets. Trump has repeatedly railed against the North as he urges the region to take a united front against the threat posed by Pyongyang. Tensions over the North's weapons program have surged in recent months as Pyongyang carried out a sixth nuclear test and test-fired several missiles, some capable of reaching the US mainland.
트럼프의 이번 우리 주변 행각은 우리 공화국의 자위적 해곡제력을 빼앗아내려는 호전광의 대결 행각이며 소나리 동맹국들의 돈주머니를 털어내어 미국 군수 독점체들의 배를 채워주기 위한 전쟁 상인의 장사 행각에 불과하다. 트럼프는 이번 행각 기간 세계의 평화와 안정의 파괴자로서의 진면모를 낱낱이 드러내놓았으며 조선반도에서의 핵전쟁을 구걸하였다.
Let's now get you the latest from the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Vietnam. The Trump-Putin factor has grabbed much attention, with all eyes on handshakes and words exchanged between the US and Russian leaders. But in another headline from the summit, there has been an announcement of progress by countries in pursuing the Trans-Pacific Partnership or TPP trade deal, despite the absence of the United States. Here's more.
Leaders and representatives of APEC economies posing for a group photo in the Vietnamese city of Da Nang. And interestingly, US President Donald Trump and Russia's Vladimir Putin stood side by side and continued chatting. The 25th APEC Economic Leaders meeting opened on Saturday morning. Chaired by Vietnamese President Tran Dai Quang, the meeting gathered leaders and representatives from 21 member economies and discussed issues such as sustainable growth and prosperity of the Pacific region. Meanwhile, leading Pacific Rim nations announced the salvaging of the Trans-Pacific Partnership or the TPP trade pact that US President Donald Trump abandoned in one of his first acts in office.
一つは TPP12 が持っていたハイスタンダードをしっかり維持をする。同時に TPP11 として早期に発行するということであります。早期に発行しようとすると、どうしてもスタンダードが下がりがちになる。
The agreement, which still needs to be finalized, would now be called the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership or the CPTPP. As the talks went on, Putin and Trump issued a joint statement on Syria, agreeing to continue joint efforts on fighting Islamic State until it is defeated. Trump also met Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte for the first time at the summit. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, here's a roundup now of some other news from across the world in Global Buzz. Former Pakistan President General Pervez Musharraf announced a grand alliance of 23 political parties. The grand alliance, named Pakistan Awami Ittihad, will be headed by Musharraf, while Iqbal Dar was appointed as Secretary General. Addressing media persons through video conferencing from Dubai, Musharraf said all parties representing migrant communities should be united. The sacked Catalan Parliament Speaker left a prison near Madrid hours after supporters posted her bail of €150,000, which ended her brief detention over the region's controversial independence drive. A judge at the Supreme Court in Madrid on Thursday had ordered Carme Forcadell to be held on charges of rebellion, which carries a maximum jail term of 30 years. Forcadell was one of several dismissed Catalan officials to be detained after their decision of declaring the region independent from Spain. The United States and South Korea started joint naval exercises which involved 3 US aircraft carriers. The 4-day joint exercise in the Western Pacific involves 3 flat tops, USS Ronald Reagan, USS Nimitz and USS Theodore Roosevelt, and 7 South Korean warships including 3 destroyers. It is the first such triple carrier drill in the region for a decade. Myanmar State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi and other leaders arrived in the Philippines on Saturday for the ASEAN Summit and related meetings. The world leaders from the 10-member bloc will meet with counterparts from 11 countries during the 2-day summit on November 13th and 14th, including China, Japan and the United States. This will be the first time US President Donald Trump joins the meeting. Well, that's it on this newscast. Good night.